You're listening to Real Estate for Real People, hosted by the Stone Sisters. The Stone Sisters have built an award-winning realty business, and they're here to share some of their knowledge with you. A new episode drops every Thursday. If you enjoy the show, please share it with a friend and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And visit www.stonesisters.com for more information just like this.
Hi, welcome back to Real Estate for Real People. We are so excited about today's episode. We are sitting down with Terry Lynn Hemmerling, and we are going to talk about environmental homes, I guess, or sustainability. You live in a home right now that you have made very environmental. So we're going to learn about that and a little bit more about you. So welcome to today's episode. As I said, we're very excited. So Terry Lynn, maybe you can tell us to start a bit about your background.
Sure. So I'm an educator by training, and I worked for our school district here, School District 23, for a decade or so. And I was living in Wilden and was feeling kind of a little bit burned out, to be very honest, about 9 years ago. And I saw this property when I was out on a run. And it was unlike anything. I was never a gardener. We used to laugh that, when I would walk into the plant section of a store, they'd all go, "No, don't get me," sort of thing. So had no business that I thought on a 2-acre property, but that land called me and I could not get it out of my head.
Wow.
And so we went and saw it and things unfolded. And a couple of months later, I found myself living on 2 acres. Had no idea what to do with it, no idea how to garden or what have you. And so just really spent the first little while pausing. And I asked myself the question, what is it that I want to do here?
Yeah.
And instead of, I knew I didn't want to I'd done this before where I had exerted my landscaping will on some land and nothing wrong with that. But this just felt different, just the nature and the wildlife that was there, the birds and all of that. And so one thing led to another, and I wound up taking a course 2 weeks in Invermere through Verge Permaculture, and it was a permaculture course. And so permaculture is really something, a term that was coined in the 80s, maybe 70s by a gentleman in Australia named Bill Mollison. Oh, don't quote me on that. No, you could look that up.
We'll look it up after.
So anyhow, he saw the way humans were getting their needs met, food, clothing, shelter, and realized we were on a collision course. This could not last.
Absolutely. I agree.
And so he called it in the beginning, it's shortened to permanent agriculture. But this system, you can apply it to anything, right? And so then it has evolved since then to permanent culture. Like, how do we as a species take care of the land and all of the stakeholders and whatnot so that we can be here? The earth doesn't need saving. We need saving. The earth will be here, right? It's whether we will be here, sort of is the question.
Very true.
And so I really need to pause here for a minute because while it was his terminology and that's what he taught and he created an awakening, this is the way Indigenous peoples all over the globe have looked after their land.
Always.
Yeah. So it wasn't his idea. He learned these ideas and systems by watching the way Indigenous peoples just took care of the land and got their own survival needs met, but without destruction and chemical inputs and clear cutting and monocropping and all of the things that we're in trouble now. Like we're in a climate crisis.
Absolutely.
And so by remembering and noticing how Indigenous people care for their land, he managed to translate it and to teach it. And so to become, to get your PDC certification, it's about a 2-week course. So I moved to Invermere and just had my mind blown. Just the ways that you approach the land by observation, by looking at your water, looking at the trees, and trying to mimic nature and work with it rather than exerting our will over it. So it kind of immediately answered my first question, and I couldn't wait to get home. And so that's a long intro.
Wow.
to
No, I
how
love it. So
got
that's
here.
where it all started.
It's good because I think a lot of people maybe have a pipe dream of, I'm going to move on to a couple acres and live off the land. And then they realize it can be overwhelming. It can be a ton of work. They don't know what to do. So they sneak out and get some Roundup and just take care of it all.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
true.
Exactly. It is overwhelming,
Mhm.
and it's just there's so much support and education out there to really look at things through a different lens and to just take a pause and observe. And before we go hit the dandelion
Yeah.
with some Roundup, like, do we know that we can eat that and it's really good for our tummies? We can eat the flowers. The roots can be roasted for a really yummy coffee alternative. They're pollinators so it's like, is it a weed or is it a really hard-working native plant that we desperately need? And we keep hitting it with Roundup.
Right. And instead, it's a resource that we can use. And
Totally. And then not only that, for me, I've raised 3 children, but I didn't want them ever on any kind of grass or anything that had
No.
been treated with
Yeah.
pesticides and
Yeah.
fertilizers or what have you. And that's pretty rare these days.
Very rare.
We've had people come and look at the property here, and it looks nice right now because we just mowed, but it's full of clover. It's got all kinds of weeds because we will not spray.
Yes.
Because it'll run right into the lake.
Well, 100%.
And neighbors up and down the street sort of look and go, oh, yeah, you've got some weeds. There's a solution for that.
Is it a solution though?
Yeah.
Or is it
Well,
really part of the problem?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah. Do we really need perfect lawns? Like,
Well, that's it,
Yeah,
really.
we
Yeah.
don't
No,
need
we
lawns at
don't.
all, actually.
Yeah, that's true, right?
So what are some of the things that you did? Let's dive back to when you first started then, when you came back from this course and you looked around at your surroundings in your house and
Your
Well,
2-acre parcel on Curtis Road.
On
and-
Curtis Road. So the first thing I did was when it started to rain, I looked at where the rain was coming off the roof because in Kelowna, we need to be concerned about water.
yes.
We get water bills. So, there's a financial incentive there. But B, we live in a dry valley. Like Glenmore, that is called Dry Valley, And so the first thing you want to do with permaculture principles, actually, if I could just talk about the ethics. So the ethics of permaculture is care for the earth. So earth care for the people care, and then share the surplus, fair share. We grow
I
so
love
much.
that.
Yeah. And you can apply that to anything. Look
Yes.
after the
Say
earth.
them again. Earth care,
People care, fair
and
share.
share. Love it.
So if even your business, look after, how are you recycling the paper? What are you using
Yeah.
for this and that? Are you looking after your employees? Are you sharing? So the principles can be applied to any system, which I love. So,
Yes.
and then the way you design is you take a look at your water because you can't do anything without water. Where's your water? How can you collect and store it? Can you recharge can you build the soil so it holds more water so that
Yes.
when we get heat domes, man, at least the trees have a fighting chance,
Yes.
and whatnot. So you look at your water first, then you look at your access. How can you get to places on the property and whatnot? And then you go to your structures. But typically we want to build our structures first. And then we
Right.
move water a long way to whatever we need, and we don't really think about access. So when I got back from that course, I started to collect the water. I partnered with a company called Eco Element Design out of Vernon, and they helped me develop a food forest. So what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
tell us more about that because I know
Okay.
that you have a food forest and I was thinking, what is that?
So a food forest really mimics the forest. If we go walking in the forest, you'll notice that all kinds of diversity are there and nobody is fertilizing or weed
Right.
whacking or mowing or
Nice.
trimming. So what we're trying to do is take that wisdom from nature and mimic it, imitate it in our gardens, even on our patios, what have you, in our yards, right? So what does nature do? So they have tall trees, first of all. So around the perimeter, I've got all sorts of nut trees, like black walnut trees and hazelnut trees, etc. And then in nature, underneath trees, you'll notice bushes. So there's my berry bushes. I've got goji, blueberry, mulberry, aronia berry, which is the
Wow.
North's acai, very
Yes.
kiwi, currant, Saskatoon, like on and on it goes. So those go under the trees, and then you have vines, and then you'll notice in a forest that you have your plants, your herbaceous plants
Yes.
at the
Right.
bottom. So those are like the medicinal plants, the echinacea that I have out back, the catmint, the sage, all of the herbs, pollinators, things to attract pollinators, so that so what I'm really doing is I'm mimicking the forest, this ancient wisdom in the forest, but I'm spreading it out so that light can get in, so I can grow it really fast, and I'm giving it a little boost, like I'm getting water to it and I'm feeding it naturally. So I'm sort of the hands and feet to speed the process up, because
Right.
all land wants to return to a forest. That's called
Yes.
succession if we just leave it, right? So
Yes.
I'm just helping it along to do that, but I'm making sure that it's food, medicine, or like it's all working together in synergy, in relationship with each other. And I'm the arms and feet of it, serving that to speed it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
So to recap where we are, Terry Lynn, you found this property. You knew it was destined for something more than a typical kind of house out in Wilden or anywhere else in the world. And you first looked at collecting the water after you got your designation and some education. You looked at collecting the water and
Right.
and assessing that. Then you looked at a forest and planting your local forest, I guess,
Food
if you will.
forest. Yeah,
Food forest.
exactly. Yep. So in planting all of those layers, knowing that the first 5 years you're gonna be supporting it a lot, but the idea is you back out and it becomes very low maintenance, because it's looking after each other just like a forest. It needs
Right.
help the first few years. We
Okay.
also, one of the most important things, that actually the very first thing I did was get a compost system going. Because if
Okay, I was
you-
wondering that.
Yeah, if you're not building soil, that's how I feed all of these plants. It's a compost tea. We mix it with rainwater, all of these things. So
Okay.
then you don't need chemical inputs, sort of thing.
Right.
So we had a massive, and I got chickens who are adorable, and yeah, they're just great fun, but they are inputs into the compost system.
Yes.
So this is the way, this helps out as well. And the other part of the water part that Eco Element Design really helped me with is we dug a trench on the contour line on the slope of the property. So what that does is, as it rains, it slows the water down and stopping it from just running off and going into the storm
right.
drain.
Yes.
So then it percolates into the soil. So what I'm trying to do is recharge groundwater,
Yes.
really build
Replenish
water,
that.
nutrients into the soil. And then that makes the property resilient. And in a place like Kelowna, we all need to be doing that, right?
Yes.
Like not just
100%.
catching water up, but doing all of these little things.
Yeah.
And so the result is, for 9 years, there has not been a single chemical used on that
I
land.
love that.
So when my dog is rolling around there, or I'm a grandma now, and I just, and you think of kids, they put stuff in their mouths,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
rolling on the grass, and that's good. They need to be getting dirty and out there. But if we've hit it with some kind of fertilizer or weed and feed, you don't want your kids on there. Like, you just don't. So I love that. It's safe for children, safe for pets. And what my husband and I notice is the birds and the owls and the frogs and all of this. They
Amazing.
know.
So
they
they're
know
all
that
coming.
this
They do know.
is safe, right?
Yes.
And so we have this unbelievable little situation with animals and chickens and birds and owls at night, and it's unbelievable. And knowing that nothing has been used on that land just
Wow.
makes me feel like I'm leaving it better than I found it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
So yeah, and then of course, and this was all done in stages. Then we partnered with another local business here, and he's excellent. I can't quite remember his name. He did the solar panels on our
good.
house.
Right. Okay.
Right. So my husband put in the solar panels, so the pool is heated. We don't use anything to heat the pool, especially in the Okanagan. You don't need it. But we put solar panels on our roof. We both drive electric cars.
Love that.
So we are actually a Fortis generating station. So
Really?
we're 70,
Amazing.
Yeah. So we're 75% energy independent. which
Wow.
that's charging 2 cars.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and so it's great. My husband loves it because there's an app on his phone. And when we're generating, the thing goes counterclockwise, right? Because it's just adding dollars to our,
going backwards.
yeah. And so, yeah, we are 75% energy independent. And that was our goal, was to try to get to net neutral, right?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And we're starting to hear about this. We're seeing some homes with solar. Some people are starting to do a loop system for their pools. That's one. We're getting more charging stations in homes that people are starting to talk about it. We don't see a lot of solar powered houses.
Yeah.
No.
For the electricity in a home, very, very few have actually taken the step, and it's a bit cost prohibitive. I think that's the number one thing.
It is. But, if you take a long view, and like people are actually attracted to our house from a selling
absolutely.
standpoint,
Of
because
course.
we have done it.
We've got 3 groups with serious interest in your home already, and a big
Because of
part
that.
is that.
And the other thing it does, like, when coming through that heat dome was quite
Yes.
nerve-wracking last year. But the solar panels actually act like a bit of a hat or a sombrero, is how it was described to me.
Yes.
So it
Of course.
keeps the hot off in the heat. And so there's yields, like there's so many benefits to it. And if you do the math forward, how much you're going to spend on electricity, especially if you were trying to charge 2 electric cars, and you will pay for it very quickly.
Yes.
But you just have to pay for it up front.
Yep,
and
that's
that
right.
hurts a little bit, but it sure feels great knowing that we're a little more resilient,
Absolutely. And I think if somebody had asked us 10 years ago, would you get the money back if I invested and put solar on my house? Will I get we're putting solar on our house, and it was $22,000. So
Yes, yes.
if somebody were to say to me 5 years ago, if I spend that tomorrow, will I get it back? The answer would have been no.
Right.
If I were to, we're investing that now, do I think we'd get that back? I do. I really do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's
No
only going
question.
to continue to grow
is.
as we're, look at the power shortages they're having down in California, in Texas.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's only going to grow. All
It
of those
is.
challenges are only going to get more so.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it is. The other really beautiful thing that happened almost as soon as we moved there is I'm a yoga teacher. I teach yoga and meditation, and there's this cute little studio. I mean, I've turned it into a studio outside. But I've had so many clients, and we would have like gatherings there. We did all the fun things, groups of women, and I've got a fire pit out back. So we would do some yoga, go hang out there on a full moon, all the fun things,
love
right? But what the comments always are is how calming it is to be somewhere where there's chickens and nature and all of this
Birds
going
and-
on. It's calming to the nervous system. And I
Yes.
had one client say, I just have to start driving down that road and I can feel myself just kind of landing again,
Wow.
just taking a deep breath. And it's been such a place of community. I broke my ankle in 2020 in the summer, and women who had been to my yoga classes showed up and started like doing the weeding and collecting the herbs, and they were hanging out. They didn't even need me. I'm in the house with my foot up.
I love
and they're
that.
out
Isn't that
there
neat?
hanging out, and it's the setting. It's that
It's a
natural
balance.
Yeah.
We all need that. And I think we've gotten so far away from that. The pandemic didn't help with everybody relying on their screens and staying inside. And it's nice to hear. It's inspiring.
Yeah.
Now you're leaving it. You're selling.
Yes.
And will you go back? Will you go live in a high rise on the 34th floor with just concrete around you?
I am not going to be doing that.
I can't see that.
No. That was a different era for me, for sure. I certainly loved it at one point, but no, I'm moving to a Gulf island.
Nice.
And I am recreating what I've got. So it's really hard leaving this land, because I got really healthy on this land, and I just really feel like it was, as I healed the land healed me, from my
Oh, amazing.
stress and all of that. And so It's hard leaving, and so I just am trusting that the right land guardians are going to come in. They're going to recognize what I've tried to do here, and I hope just take it and keep going with it.
And I think they will. And it's sort of a gift that you've done. You've created this amazing. You took beautiful land and you restored it, and you've created something beautiful. And how nice, it's a legacy that
I hope that's my hope.
Yeah.
I just want the right people to come in and fall in love with it the way I did, because boy, it's special, and anybody's land. It's the same thing. It's how we care for it, and considering, before we do anything, observe and consider all the stakeholders before you go in and take down a tree and realize, like, we're in a heating area, like those trees keep things cool, and homes for little creatures, and maybe providing some food, or just through that lens of not just what's quick, easy, convenient, but sort of what's the best case scenario for the planet, for me, for all the stakeholders. How can I share this out somehow? And just applying those principles. So I'm off to do it again somewhere else.
It's so neat.
Near my grandbaby.
I love that.
I got to keep my eye on it's for a good reason that I'm leaving. And I'm just so grateful to be doing this podcast with you, because I'm hoping that the right people, the next land guardians will come in,
and they will. They absolutely
will. And I'm
will.
sure we will also have some listeners who live on the 34th floor in a high rise and go, well, what could I do? Is there anything I can do? Or somebody who's in a townhome or a house that is the opposite of what we're talking about. And I think you've shared some inspiration and some ideas for them to go, I know for me, certainly I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we're doing some, but there's more.
For sure. And it's just the little baby steps. People think, what difference is this going to make when we're in such a, such a situation right now? Every little bit. And it's that energy of the intention when you start to move that way, like considering, we eat. I heard you this morning saying, I bought these organic lemons. Well, they're more expensive, but the land that they were grown on hopefully was taken care of a little bit better, including the workers that have to pick, these things. And if they're sprayed with heavy duty chemicals, that harms the workers. So someone living on the 34th floor does lots. Supporting the local business is permaculture practice, right? How are you eating? Growing some expensive food crops, like maybe tomatoes right on your balcony.
Yes.
That's good for you. You're saving a truck coming up from goodness knows where. Often our produce has traveled more than I have.
Yes.
In a year.
So true.
Right?
Yes.
And so if we just these little bits, and then share some with your neighbors, and then they grow something else, and all, it can be applied anywhere, right? You don't need 2 acres. You don't need a house with a yard. You just how you approach things is permanent culture, sort of thing. Let's start out through
Collect
that.
water.
Exactly. Or even taking your water and, I have eggs on toast because I have chickens. So rather than just, I boil them, rather than just chucking it out, I feed that water to my plants. There is just a little pivot, right? Just before we throw it out, we're such a fast moving culture, like just to take that pause and what else? How else could we use this water?
Right.
You know?
It's reusing all
of it,
everything.
all the resources.
Everything. And just approaching it, when we approach all of what we take for granted, hot and cold running water, with that sort of gratitude and intention, the ideas will come because it's just right action.
Yes.
The ideas will, and then it just becomes fun, to see it. Like people know not to come to my house with plastic wrapped stuff and gifts. I really don't, even that, like just to say, I don't need any, if I need anything, I've got some means and privilege that I can get it. So don't be buying stuff from places that are going to do more harm. And if it is a gift, they know, buy it local for me and have it, I'm forgetting the word now, but where you use it, where it's a candle, there is no waste left.
I love
after,
that.
Right?
Yes,
And so
that
these are
makes
all
sense.
ways that people can practice permaculture in their lives, right?
Wow.
So amazing.
Well, Terry Lynn, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for
Permaculture,
having me.
I feel so inspired, Shannon. I know you do.
Yeah. And I'm sure most of our listeners will as well, just taking those little steps. So
Yeah.
where can people find you? If they have questions or anything, can they reach
Do you want to be found?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a little website, and it's called, I named the land. My daughter helped me name it, and it's called No Harm Farm. And so there's a website called noharmfarm.ca. And so we're going to just be changing that now to sort of tell the story of what I'm restoring an old cottage on this Gulf island that was built in the 40s. And same idea, right? Like collecting the water and
Gives me
observing.
goosebumps.
So we're going to start documenting that story, and it will be there. So noharmfarm.ca.
noharmfarm.ca.
We'll include
that
the
is
link
amazing.
as
Yeah,
well.
we absolutely will.
Yeah,
And then your house right now is on the market.
Yes, it is.
And so people can go and check that property out. It is listed on our website. So
And we will link to that as well, because you've got to watch the video. You've got to see the photos. This
so
is
beautiful.
It's a magical property.
It really is.
Even from the still photos and
the
then
video, you can sense that balance, I think, is really what your property inspires and brings. So
Aw, I
yeah.
hope
Oh,
so.
well
Thank
said,
you.
Jess.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much.
This has been great.
this has been fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate for Real People. If you want to reach out to the Stone Sisters, visit www.stonesisters.com. This podcast was produced by Podigy Podcasts. See you next time.